Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Welcome to another episode of Starter Set Saturday. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Alien RPG Starter Set. Now, I'm going to be completely and totally clear upfront. Reviews are a subjective process, right? Like that's the whole point, is to get your thoughts and your opinions. So it's difficult to try to maintain some objectivity when it comes to like doing these types of things sometimes, especially when it comes to, for me, for the Alien franchise, because it is my all-time favorite movie franchise. I watched the movies when I was probably way too young. I had the entire first wave of the Alien action figures from like the 90s, excluding the vehicles. I didn't have the vehicles. My neighbor had like the jet, and I think he had the power loader. But I still have, to this day, all four of the original aliens or xenomorphs from that line: the bull alien, the gorilla alien, the scorpion alien, and the queen. And yeah, I just absolutely love this franchise. My wife and I have been watching Alien Earth, which is a bit of a surprise because she does not care for horror stuff. So I'm going to be really biased when it comes to this, just to be totally fair. But I am still going to, like, try to back up and justify everything that I give the starter set. It also is interesting because Free League is really like one of my favorite RPG companies out there. And when it comes to like licensed properties, at least the ones that I've had some heavy involvement with in terms of like actually running from Free League, they do amazing work with their licensed properties. You can tell that the people that are writing these scenarios or coming up with the rules, like they deeply care about the franchise. And in a lot of cases, they do a better job with the material than some of the movies in the series, and that's definitely going to be the case here. So anyway, here we've got the starter set. You've got sort of the ominous silhouette of somebody looking into this corridor, or in this corridor looking into a room that's just all red light with the xenomorph's tail coming in behind the person. This was put out by Free League, and I forgot to write down the year, but it should be on here, 2020. So this is a little over 5 years old now. And the suggested retail price. So this was a little bit difficult to find. The only MSRP number I saw online, doing, like, I didn't spend hours doing Google searches, but the one that I found listed it at $29.99 US dollars. And honestly, like, if that was the price, that was a damn good price, because I think that's a little bit low. Like, used open copies of this starter set are being listed online for like $300 Canadian. So I'm thinking that a $39.99 US dollar starter set price is probably a little bit more likely. Again, this was actually sent to me by Free League back in the day. I had picked up the core rules and the Game Mother screen, but they sent me the starter set along with the Destroyer of Worlds scenario, and then I think everything else I've picked up for the Alien that I have for the Alien role playing game is stuff that I just purchased myself, and I recently spent a ton on their Kickstarter. Like, I think I ended up spending over $1,000 on their Kickstarter just with like extra copies of things. And anyway, I love this franchise. So again, fair warning that objectivity might go a little bit. It may not be thrown out the window, but it's leaning pretty heavily off the side of the balcony here. Yeah. So anyway, that was the MSRP. So again, if you have an idea of what the MSRP was, like if you remember being listed at your local game store, let me know that. I'm thinking $39.99 US. Is a bit more likely, and we'll talk about the main reason for that here towards the end of the video. But we'll go ahead and take a look at the first things here, which is the presentation and production quality. I am still considering breaking these down into two separate categories, so that it'd be 5 categories in general. In fact, when I initially wrote out the scores for this video, I did do that. And it did come up with a lower number, obviously, because there's you're dividing by a larger number. So what I'm going to do is probably have a poll up within the next week or so to ask if I should have the five categories as opposed to the four. With five categories, you can get a little bit more of a distinction between the scores. So I'll leave that up to you guys because I want this to be a series that you are heavily involved in. But just from the production quality and presentation department alone, they were both scored the same. So in this situation, I really don't mind, combining them into the one category. But this is a really well-produced product. You're looking at, down on the table here, is the double-sided map that comes with this starter set, and the one side here is just the galactic map of the alien universe or the alien cinematic universe, whatever you want to call it. And then on the other side is the ship that is explored during the scenario. So it just comes with the one map, but it is a nice thick cardstock, so it doesn't feel flimsy. I don't feel like it's going to rip apart if I keep, using it as much as some of the other maps that tend to be pulled out of the backs of RPG books might be. So this is a really nice high quality cardstock, and again, even just the cardboard that the box set is made out of is nice and thick. Now mine did come with a little bit of damage when it was sent to me, but this is all that was damaged on the box. Went on the box inside, when the box outside looked like it had been destroyed. So I was really appreciative that barely any damage got through. We do have 2 sets of dice included in here as well, and these dice sets alone go for each of these would go for around $15 to $20 US on the Free League website. So that's one of the reasons why I doubt this was a $30 set. But even if it's a $40 set, you're still getting that just from these sets of dice. They're nice, high-quality dice. One for your base rolls, which are the black ones, and then as you get stressed out, you do have those yellow stress dice as well. We have some cardstock tokens, which, truthfully, feels like it is the cheapest part of this entire product, and not something that I use a ton, but I have actually used these tokens in some of the games that I've run. We also get a set of cards for initiative, for player character, personal agendas, and for equipment cards. So the the equipment, for example, will have a picture on one side and then the description of the weapon on the other. And these are really nice quality cards. I don't know if it's going to show up on the camera. You might be able to see it there. But these are really nicely textured, so they feel more like a decent quality playing card than even a good quality collectible card game like Magic the Gathering or stuff like that. So it doesn't feel like it's a cheap cardstock or anything. It is card, it's not plastic, but it is nicely textured and does have a really good feel to it. And then as far as presentation goes for the rest of the stuff here, I mean, the artwork is just incredible in this for this entire product line. I mean, Free League has some amazing artwork. And again, when it comes to things like licensed properties, it's really easy and it's really tempting to just basically take still images from movies or the TV shows or things along those lines and use that as your artwork here. But they actually have artists just creating some amazing scenes all throughout these books, and then just the regular pages, even they look like they are displays on a computer screen against a starry background. So yeah, presentation on this is really, really fantastic all the way throughout. So I'm going to give the presentation and production quality a 9 out of 10. Again, it's really going to be difficult for me to give out a 10 out of 10. I do know of one starter set that the production quality and the presentation is going to get a 10 out of 10, and it might be the only one that I give out in the entire series, but this one was pretty close for me for that. I mean, truthfully, if there's only a way to make these feel a little bit more higher quality, then maybe that could have pushed it over, but I mean, the fact that That's the only real gripe that I have with the presentation or the production. Definitely says quite a bit for the product as a whole. So now let's move on to the quality of the rules, and we'll just get everything else out here. Just move the box kind of out of the way, and we'll move the rest of this stuff out of the way. So the rule book. What's great about this rule book, and something that again Free League does, and they're not the only company, so there'll be other starter set rule books that I'll be able to say this for as well. But one of the great things about the design philosophy behind this particular rule book is that the starter set can be used as your only rules reference if all you're doing is running the cinematic scenarios. So there are 3 box sets currently available: the starter set, the Destroyer of Worlds, and then the Heart of Darkness ones. Those are all considered to be cinematic scenarios, so they come with pre-generated characters with their own personal agendas and goals that typically don't align with hardly anybody else in the group. And if that's all you're doing, then this is the only rule book that you'll need. And as far as the rules themselves are concerned, they are essentially copied directly from the Alien RPG core rulebook hardcover. So in terms of like the wording for everything, like it's all pretty much the exact same. I don't think there's any real difference in the way that rules are described in this book and the way that they're described in the core rulebook. The only thing is that the core rulebook has a wider selection of creatures, obviously, but you do get all of those or most of those creatures through the other box sets as well. But it also would have like character creation and campaign play guidelines and information. But otherwise, like the rules are literally one for one from the hardcover core rulebook. And there's been times where I've been running the game, even with the core rulebook, available at my side, and I would still reference this just because it was more handy for me to do so. So the rule book, the quality of the rules, again, I'm going to give a 9 out of 10 because it's literally the exact same wordings and rulings that are in the hardcover. The only thing is that the hardcover has character creation, campaign play, and the complete bestiary of creatures, whereas the starter set only features the creatures that are in it, and then you have to get like the Destroyer of Worlds to get the classic xenomorph archetypes, and then you can get the Deacon and stuff from the Heart of Darkness starter set, or box set I should say, not starter set. So yeah, overall rules quality gets a 9 out of 10 for me. Alright, so up next we have the adventure quality or scenario quality. I do have a bad habit of just referring to like the games that I run as adventures, and there's some things that works for, and there's some things where it really doesn't work for. And like sci-fi stuff like Alien, just you definitely does not feel like an adventure. It definitely feels like a scenario. But yeah, we've got our pre-gen characters here. And again, they are like nicely presented to you. You've got like their background, you got some of their personal information, you've got like their stats and everything there. So you've got a good selection of characters to play as, and so there's 5 ready-made characters. And as the scenario goes on, you do find survivors that you can also take on as player characters if you start losing. If you start losing too many of your characters. But the basic plot, I don't want to go into too much spoiler territory with this, but I would describe the Charity of the Gods scenario as a mixture of the original Alien film, because the characters are kind of those like space trucker type of characters. They're like the gritty. They're on a delivery run when they are woken from hypersleep early. Because they detected something, or Mother detected something, and what they ended up detecting was the USCSS, the Kronos, not the Montero. The Montero is the ship that you start on, but the Kronos is the ship that you end up finding, and it is a 75-year-old science vessel it's a science vessel that went missing 75 years ago. So it's, kind of like you have the mystery of what happened there. The characters are forced to explore this derelict ship under the penalty of complete and total forfeiture of chairs if they decide to disobey a Weyland-Yutani directive. So you get like the alien aspect from there, but when they get onto the Kronos is just covered in the little spore mounds from Alien Covenant, and some individuals might end up turning into the the abomination characters that, what was it, Fifield in Prometheus did, like the guy that kind of looked like a zombie. Although the original version of that scene had him looking a lot more like a xenomorph, which they really should have kept because I thought that looked better than just the zombie with the melted glass helmet thing. But anyway, it kind of combines elements of the original Alien and the two prequel movies, but the elements from the prequel movies are just handled so much better in the role playing game. Like, it's, I would rather watch this as a movie than go back and try to watch Prometheus or Covenant, especially Covenant. So yeah, they do a really fantastic job. The entire scenario is like intensely atmospheric, and I like remember the players were just kind of they were a bit on the edge of their seats as they were going through and exploring the ship. And one of the things that I do to sort of help with that is in the beginning when they first awake from hypersleep, I give them time to interact, and things are pretty lighthearted and jokey and stuff like that. And I maintain that until they see something like really serious, and they see some pretty serious stuff on this ship. So once they get there, like then things start to like really suddenly just completely shift from lighthearted and casual to like insanely intense, and they just do they do a really good job of allowing you to kind of create that atmosphere. And some of the descriptive text in these scenarios is just some of the most like disgusting but just like visually intense descriptions of like body horror that I've seen in a lot of like different like RPG type properties. So they do a really amazing job with that. So again, I don't want to spoil too much. They do find there are some scientists that are still alive in hypersleep, and then it's a mystery like trying to unravel what happened and try to find a way to survive. Now, there is an aspect of this scenario that is just not worth including, and it's in the let's see here. It's one of the events that can happen in the third act of the scenario. So Act 1, Act 2, yeah, so Act 3, the prepare to be boarded. So at the beginning of the scenario, it does, like, the flavor text does indicate that there is sort of this, like, sensor echo that's happening periodically when you're, like, getting ready to, like, when they were getting ready to leave with their cargo. They picked up this, like, echo that they couldn't quite explain, because when they would focus their sensors on it, there was nothing there. And it turns out it's actually a space pirate ship, the Sotillo or Sotillo or however they pronounce that, and it's sort of been following what's been going. It's been following the Montario, which is the ship that the characters start with, and essentially it kind of acts almost like an ex machina of having like a means of escape appear at like the 11th hour kind of thing. And truthfully, I don't think it adds anything to the scenario. And when I was running the game, I didn't include it. I used the sensor echo as a means of like explaining why at the beginning of the scenario they almost collide with the Kronos because like the sensors were unreliable. But beyond that, it's not something that needs to be included. And to their credit, it does say that you only really should throw this in the mix if you feel like the twist will add to the story, or if maybe the characters, like if the players need more characters to play. But truthfully, like that whole section, I would 100% recommend just not including that in the scenario, and I think the scenario is better for it. So overall, I'm going to give the scenario quality, with that one kind of minor nitpick, which yes, it is something that you can ignore, and the book even kind of recommends it unless it feels absolutely necessary. It is a great scenario, but I am going to give this an 8 out of 10. I still think 8 out of 10 is still, like well above and beyond, like it's like fantastic quality. But, it's just not quite at what I would call 9 out of 10 plateau. It was close, and when I'm debating between two numbers, I will always choose the lower number just to err on the side of caution. So that's why I went with the 8 out of 9 for that. And then finally, we have the value for. Oh, I guess I didn't even look at this. What is this? Oh, okay, these were just the events that I chose to include in the scenario. Just because you don't have to include all of the events, you should probably avoid including all of the events. So I kind of went through the scenario and I looked at the ones that I thought would be the most beneficial towards the story and went with that. So value for dollar. This is an insanely valuable product, and I mean the fact that again, like the resellers are putting used copies up on like eBay or Amazon for hundreds of dollars. Should really tell you all that you need to know there. Like thinking that the MSRP is $39.99 US dollars. These sets of dice are, I think, around $20 each. They might be 15 or 20. I can't remember now. I know that like the whole tariff thing has caused a lot of companies to have to put some of their prices up. But let's just say that these were 15. I think they're 20, but let's just say that they were 15. You're getting 30 of that $39 back just from having these dice included. I mean, yeah, they only come in a plastic Ziploc bag as opposed to a fancy plastic packaging that you have to destroy to open up anyway. So I just kind of prefer that they come in the Ziploc bag. So just the dice alone make this almost completely worth it. And then when you throw on like the cards for the initiative system or for the equipment or even just to run this starter set scenario with all of the personal agendas, you're getting a ton of great stuff here. You're getting a rule book that can be used with all the other box sets that have been released for this version of the Alien game. So you're getting a ton of value out of that as well, and you're getting a really great atmospheric scenario that captures the essence of the Alien universe better than most of the more recent movies, even going back to like Alien Resurrection. Like the role-playing game scenarios just capture that feeling in ways that those movies just absolutely failed to do. So you're getting just like an incredible experience. You're getting the full sets of dice that you could buy separately. You're getting the cards. You're getting a rule book that is far more useful than just when running this particular box set. So for the value for the price, again, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. So before we get to the final score, I'm just going to go over the pros and cons, or I guess the cons and pros, because I like to do the negatives first, so I can end on a positive note. So on the negative side, the biggest thing was just the whole space pirate subplot that just does not need to be included. The book does also say that you really don't need to put this in there unless you really feel that you need to, but it does feel again kind of like this whole like Ex Machina thing where you can just swoop in with these pirates and save the player characters at the last minute. And I don't think that goes with what the theme and the tone of this scenario is supposed to be. When I ran this scenario, nobody survived. And the last 20 minutes, well, I'll talk about that in a moment, but like just nobody survived. But I think the experience was better for that than just having something come in at the last minute and be like, all right, well, here's your way out. And I think that would really kind of throw things off. So the Space Pirate subplot is definitely a con. Don't use it unless you really, really, really have to. Even the book says, you may want to hold off on actually using this unless you feel it's necessary. The other thing is, while the presentation is incredible in these books, the black pages are absolute fingerprint magnets. I think the fingerprints do kind of wear off when you put them back in the box for a while, but just while using and running the game, there were like fingerprint smudges all over the place. And it always makes me wince a little bit when I see stuff like that, so I would consider that to be one of the negatives as well. And the other thing is just simply the last negative is just that these cardstock tokens, they feel like the cheapest part of the entire set, and it feels almost like they're from something else because everything else is so high quality that when you get just these standard double-sided cardstock tokens that you punch out of a sheet, they feel cheap in comparison, but that's, again, really more of a nitpick than anything else. On the pro side, as I said this before, the scenario handles the Alien license better than the movies, or the prequel movies in particular. Now, I love Alien 3. I will defend that movie, till my dying breath. But Resurrection AVP, AVPR, Prometheus, and Covenant, this scenario handles elements taken from those far better. Well, not Resurrection. Resurrection's actually not canon, thankfully, in the timeline of the RPG. But it handles those elements from the prequels so much better, and incorporates them so much more logically into the story. They just feel like they're better used in these scenarios than they were kind of in the movies. And, there's a difference between being on an unknown planet without any environmental protections and being on a ship where, you do have initially environmental protections, but that's a finite resource that you're going to run out of. So eventually you're going to be exposed, to these spores in some form or fashion. So it's just, that element is handled, again, a bit more logically because, you can have those protections for a while, but eventually you're going to fight stuff. Your suit's going to get ripped by a xenomorph or, I guess more like the, what do they call them? The neomorph that you might encounter, or the abominations, so that might rip open your suit. Just panicking can use up your air supply. So eventually you're going to have to take the helmet off, not because it's why not just do it because, for the plot. It's there's a reason that you have to. So they just handle stuff like that better. And I do like that they give the abominations a pretty decent spotlight as well, because I was kind of a throwaway creature from Prometheus that you could have had a whole movie built around, or built around the concept of. So it just explores that a little bit better, in my opinion. The rule book, again, the dice, and the cards, aside from the personal agenda, are going to be useful every time you run the game. Not just for the starter set itself. Whenever I run Alien, these are the dice that I use because they are the official Alien dice. I use the initiative cards. If I were running this for an in-person group, I would be using the equipment cards to pass out to the players, even if we were running a different scenario or campaign play, or doesn't matter. But those elements are going to be used all the time. So buying the starter set gives you access to things that you can use for years and years and years. And then finally, dipping back to the scenario, I will say that the last 20 minutes of the Chariot of the Gods scenario, with the way that my group handled it, was, at that time, the most fun I ever had as a game master, dungeon master, game mother, lore keeper, whatever you want to call it. It was just the most fun that I ever had, because all of a sudden everybody's plans that they were coming up with and that they were messaging to me and private chats on the Zoom call that we were on, it all just came to a head, and everybody started betraying everybody else. And the ending with the corporate weasel getting his comeuppance in the final moments before the Kronos exploded was just amazing. And I didn't really have to do anything. I just got to sit back and watch as the events unfolded, and it was amazing. I said, one of the most pure fun moments of 26 years of running games and counting, and it came through this Alien RPG. So a really fantastic role-playing game if you are a fan of the license, and a really amazing starter set. So just to go over the categories again: presentation and production quality got a 9 out of 10, rules quality got a 9 out of 10, value for price got a 9 out of 10, and the scenario quality got an 8 out of 10, only slightly let down by, again, the pointless inclusion of the space pirate subplot. And, some people would complain that the starter set didn't include the classic Xenomorph. That didn't bother me because, they handled the creatures that were in here really well. And the next set that they came out with would include all of those Xenomorph types. But I can see getting it, I was debating between an 8 and a 9, so I had to go with the lower number to be on the safe side. So 8 out of 10 for that, for a total of 8.75 out of 10. I think this might be the highest rated starter set so far. And it's going to be definitely a tough one to overthrow. By the time this video goes out, the poll for the next Starter Set Saturday will already be available. So I want to thank everybody who voted on this poll to get this starter set in the limelight. And I hope you guys vote on the next poll as well. And about a week or so after that poll goes out, I will do another just simple yes or no. Should I have presentation and production broken into 2 separate categories for 5 total, or should I just keep it with the 4 that they're currently at? So I'll let you guys help decide that as well. Anyway, thank you all so very much for your time. I truly appreciate it, and we will see you in the next one. Until then, take care.